there, welcome back. I'm going to talk today about the Inner Sanctum Mysteries series, starring Lon Chaney Jr., which were released by Eureka in UK in 2021, and I finally went to watch them. Now they were based essentially on a series of stories released by Simon Schuster. But then that was licensed into a radio show. It was a famous radio show in the 40s called Inner Sanctum Mysteries. But it did really well. And they did lots of guest casts like Boris Karloff, Peter Lorre, things like that coming in and doing the voiceovers. Because if an actor was in New York doing something else, they could pop in for a night and do a radio play, and make some money, but also have some fun with it. It was good little practice for them. So they always got stars in to do this, but also had a lot of character actors in New York doing them as well, making a living doing this. So it was a good gig. So eventually, because the people knew about the mysteries and people they were just normal, it was a mystery label for Simon Schuster, with the little mystery novels. Because people knew the names from the Simon Schuster stuff plus the radio play, they said, well, let's make movies of this. But what happened was they simply only bought the rights to the Simon Schuster publishing, so they couldn't reference the radio plays because the person who's in charge of radio plays asked for too much money to come on board and help them with the films. And at that point, the negotiations broke down. It's like, you can't use a creak and door famous logo from the TV show, not the TV show, the radio show, so you have to avoid mentioning the radio show. Which they did. So what they did instead was, because it was Universal, who were putting out a lot of quickies at the time, a lot of genre quickies. In the 30s, they had the big A-production, Carl Laemmle produced horror films like Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Mummy, all that stuff. Then the Laemmles sold Universal, and the new owners could see that they'd all this material that could be used for sequels. So you'd have like The Son of Frankenstein, The Ghost of Frankenstein, all the Frankenstein movies. You'd have Wolfman movie, then the movie series. Then you had a lot of other stuff they were going to make, like the Sherlock Holmes movies, that you saw a lot of crossover with Frankenstein cast members and Dracula cast members and certain sets, certain supporting actors. You know, there's a lot of crossover, a lot of these things. And then you had things like Inner Sanctum, which was a Universal films that used a lot of the same contract actors. So a lot of actors you saw in like J. Carrol Naish, you know, Evelyn Anders, Lon Chaney Jr. popped up in these. You had Brenda Joyce, who was in some of the Tarzan films later. You had lots of people who would pop up in these films who were known genre actors. You know, so you had that element in it. And because Lon Chaney Jr. was not a top star like Boris Karloff, but at the time he'd got a lot of praise for Mice and Men, his performance there. But he was typed as a lower level horror star. He's a Wolfman, which was a nice gig. And he was in these other films like The Mummy, playing the Mummy. He played Dracula in one film. But he was basically the Wolfman. And they could afford him, he was on contract with them, so they could always put him in films non-stop. It was like, he's one of our stars, he's going to work. So he worked in lots of films. Some he didn't like, some he did like. But the Inner Sanctum was his chance to actually stretch himself. So he did not have to wear the makeups, which he hated doing. Because he liked to drink at the time, and that made him sweat, and sweat and makeup was not a good mix. So this is his chance to act and not have lots of prosthetics. So he was, instead of having like a lead character going through the films, because there were mysteries, he would be a different character in each film, but he'd always be the central character, the person who was under duress as a suspect for being the villain of these films. So he was always a person who was under duress. Because Lon Chaney Jr., his big thing at the time was playing guilty characters who were tortured by life, which is perfect for these mystery things. So it was a well cast element of these. Let's put Lon Chaney Jr. in these and have him be the person who's under suspicion, you know. Because people liked that. People loved him in The Wolfman. Because he just had a natural sympathy for him. Even when he made mistakes. Life was horrible to him, but you enjoyed watching him suffer. And you felt bad for him. Some of these films work better than others for that. Because sometimes the fact that it's Lon Chaney Jr. doesn't help the film. And sometimes it does. So because you see him stretch, and you get to see him stretch in ways that are interesting, you get to see him stretch in ways which are, don't do that again. You know, there's that kind of element to it. Now, after these films came out, Lon Chaney Jr. had a career collapse because the horror cycle ended and he was no longer a horror star. But he became a character actor after that point. So he had a bad year or two, but after that he bounced back. He did a lot of television, like Boris Karloff. He popped up, a lot of directors liked him in supporting parts. They'd bring him in for a lot of supporting parts for different things. And he made a decent living doing that because he was always working, because directors liked him. You know, because Stanley Kramer, the big director, said that if there was a part that was really difficult, he'd get Lon Chaney Jr. in because he could probably pull off certain things. Because he was an actor who, as he got older, he got better. He learned on the job. He started out as an actor, was very limited, one note, but he got better as he went on. And these films, even though there's some flaws, they probably helped him a lot do that so that he was ready for the next stage in his career. But it was a slow process, as you'll see as I talk about the films. But he was an actor who did well. He was in High Noon. He was in lots of big films in the 50s. And he just became one of those names that were faces in big films, that he may not have been as big as he once was. And he may have been superseded by certain actors who were on the rise as he was at the top, like Kirk Douglas, you know, Burt Lancaster and stuff. They took over those big parts. But he did okay for himself. I mean, a character actor in Hollywood's a pretty good gig. And he kept on acting for another 20 years after these films, before illness took over. But he was always in demand. He was always working. So, these are the films he made when he was a big star as a way to stretch. And the first three of them were directed by the same guy, who was Reginald LeBorg, which is a very fake sounding name, obviously. Sounds like a name he should be in these films. And then after that, LeBorg moved on, and other directors come in. Now, apparently, Lon Chaney Jr. wasn't so pleased with the new directors coming in, because he liked LeBorg, he got on well with him, he liked their chemistry. So he was less pleased with the replacements. Which is weird, because when you watch the films where LeBorg don't direct are actually better paced and get to the point a lot quicker. And the best film in the series was not directed by LeBorg. The best film in the series is called Strange Confession, which was not a LeBorg film. But LeBorg did the first three. The first three, I'm just going through the box here, it's simpler. First three are Calling Dr. Death, Weird Woman, and Dead Man's Eyes. And they're a mixed bag. There's one that I really like. There's one that I really enjoy despite some flaws. And there's one that's kind of weak but still enjoyable. The weakest one is the Dead Man's Eyes. It's the weakest one. But a lot of people have different opinions of what's the weakest one, what's the strongest one in these series. So I'm giving my opinion, right? Other people will differ. Because it's just a series of different films, different tastes take over. The big problem with some of these films is there's sometimes had actors in them that were not that good, who were contract players, and they're put in the film, and you could tell that they were not good actors, and they were given stuff that was beyond them. In this one, Lon Chaney Jr. plays an artist who's finishing up a painting. He's in love with a woman who's rich, and her family all love him, and he's got an assistant he's also Peyton, who's this Mexican woman, and everything's going well. He's a bit stressed out by a couple of things, but everything's going pretty fine. And he has an accident and he loses his sight because he used to put things in his eyes to relax his eyes once he'd finished painting for the day. Because of a mix-up, the bottles get mixed up. Acid goes in his eyes rather than the solution, which obviously blinds him. There's a potential dodgy science solution of someone else's corneas put in the eyes at a certain point, which is crazy science, but in these kind of films it's perfect. You kind of love that. I mean, that was the best bit of the film, was the crazy science stuff, and these corners are going missing and have to get them and put them in his eyes, and will he get his sight back? It's pure cliche stuff, but it's a lot of fun. But the problem with this one is basically that it indulges like Chaney in his most histrionic performance, in a sense that he's kind of the characters are very self-pitying, and you can lose interest in him because he's an alcoholic at times, and he pushes people away. I mean, they're trying to make it very Lon Chaney Jr. in this one, but they go too far because there's a certain point you just think, oh, get out of it, will you? But at a certain point he does, and he starts to try and figure out the mystery because his potential father-in-law gets murdered, and he's a suspect, and he's trying to figure out what happened. And a lot of these films, they try and make it like you're getting his thoughts, but he could be the murderer and not know it. And there's an element of that there because he has a blackout and things. Or did he in this one? There's the crossover even after seeing them all. Is sometimes it's like is he lying or did that when he actually has a blackout? There is a thing where they repeat certain plot points. Which tells you why there's only 6 of these movies. At some point they ran out of ideas for these movies. And the film has a terrible performance by the actress who's playing his model / helper. And it's one of those ones that you can feel, it's only an hour long, but you can feel the hour in this one. It needs to go a bigger clip, and the big problem with this director, LeBorg, is he indulges his Lon Chaney Jr. in some of his worst instincts, like talking too slow, being too deliberate in his performance, in a way that it's get on with it, which he doesn't get, which the other directors push him to go quicker, and it really improves his performance because it's much more fun. And this is the worst case where he's indulged to be as mannered as he wants to be. The other 2 films are a lot more fun. Calling Dr. Death is very flawed because you can spot the killer immediately. Like, if you can't spot the killer in this one, there's no hope for your brain because it's so obvious who the killer is, like, straight away. And Lon Chaney Jr. does have like moments of mannerism as well, because he's got a voice that's very kind of working class, but it can sound thick at times just because of the tone of his voice. There's nothing they can do about it. It's just like some directors know what it is and actually help him around it, so you don't notice it too much. LeBorg didn't seem to care that much or notice it, or probably found it interesting, I don't know, but he never seemed to help him to get away from this bad habit. Because certain words of Chaney said to him didn't make him sound too intelligent, so you had to avoid certain words, and this film doesn't. But the film itself's fun, because the villainess, the person you know is a villain, is a lot of fun watching her spin her web. I mean, I don't care, because it's so obvious who the villain is. It's constructed so you know who the villain is. It's almost like Columbo, where you're trying to wait for them to make a mistake. Because even though they say, oh, it could be Lon Chaney Jr., he did have a blackout. You know it's not him. If it was him, it would be disappointing for a story idea. So it had to be this other person. And he's just watching them get caught. But it is fun because J. Carrol Naish is the detective trying to hunt the killer down, and he's a total prick to Lon Chaney Jr. throughout the film, and he's fun. And Chaney's pretty good fun as well, because he's playing this guy who's trying to be a good guy. He's trying to help people. He's a person who tries to get people's subconscious by hypnotising them. And he is a decent guy who has a terrible taste in women. And so you are sympathetic towards him, even though he could be the villain. But you know he's really not. So it's one of those films, if it was something like Karlov, you'd be more suspicious, is he or isn't he? Because it's changing you. You know it's not him in this one. Just the way it's been set up, you know it's not him. But it's still a fun movie. It's a cliched movie, but it's fun. It's really enjoyable. The best of the Le Borg ones is my second favourite of the series, which is Weird Woman, which is an adaptation of Conjure Wife by Fritz Leiber, which I've not read, but after watching the film, I'd buy the book in Kindle. It's a lot of fun. I mean, the funny thing with this one is Lon Chaney Jnr. is the lead in it, but he's the person everybody's least interested in, from the writing to the directing and everything. And to his credit, he seems to realise that all the other parts are better than his, and he doesn't try and push into the drama and take centre stage. He actually lets all the other actresses who have got the best parts do their thing. He seems to understand, I'm the lead in this film, but it's not my film. The other parts, the fun parts, I'll do my thing here. So that's what works there, is he understands that his part has not been written to be that dynamic. He's the person who has suspicions, who's getting beaten up by life, as things happen to him, but everyone around him is manipulating the situation, has a more fun parts, has a better dialogue. And he seems fine with that. He did his part. This is probably his best part under Le Borg, because he knows what he's doing. In the whole idea of his weakness as an actor this time was that he could appear as a bit downtrodden and other people are smarter than him. And that's the point of this film, is other people are smarter than him. Even though he's getting all the plaudits have been smart, he's not as smart as the other people. And it's fun, and watching him getting tortured for an hour is a lot of fun. It's really enjoyable. All these women torturing him, and the women have all the best parts. His wife, who he marries and brings back to this college, university where he's a lecturer, Gunnar's jealous of all the other women, and the fact he's got this new book out that's doing really well. Gunnar's jealous, and it's all about how women manipulate situations for their husbands to do better, and it's all about the different ties, and they add a supernatural element to it. And Evelyn Anders plays the villainess in this one. She's normally the nice person in the film, but in this one she's a villainess, and she's great. She's so much fun as the villainess. She's one of those villainesses you love to hate, because it's like, yes, she's awful, but she's so much fun. She's having so much fun doing it. Plus, as an actress, she plays it subtle. She doesn't do the crazy shit. She does it very subtle. In a way, she's manipulating people in ways that it looks like she's trying to help them. And she says it was the only part where she's a villain and she was a bit uncomfortable with it. And they should never cast her as a villain again. Which is a shame, because she's really good at it, because she never did the villain tics. She let you figure out she's a villain, just slowly but surely. So you know she's malicious early on, but it's like how far she's going to go, and then slowly but surely you see she's going to go really far. And it's a really enjoyable performance. It's the best performance in this whole box set, really. And it's a really enjoyable film. And, you know, it's the second best in this box set. And even that and the one I think is the best one, I can go back and forth on them, to be honest, because they are both very enjoyable. This is one of the two films I'd watch a lot from this box set in the future, because I really enjoyed it. We now have the three non-Le Borg films, which the first one is The Frozen Ghost, which is probably the weakest of the non-Le Borg films. And it's kind of on par with the one Dead Man's Eyes for being ridiculous and silly, but kind of enjoyable despite that. Like this one, Chaney plays this guy who hypnotizes people on air. When he's doing it one time, someone has a heart attack and dies. It knocks his confidence for 6. He can no longer work. And he's sent to this his agent, his business manager, sends him to this place run by friends, which is a waxwork museum, and to help him get better. But it starts to drive him more insane as there's more people around him that are just as crazy as he is, and there's lots of plots going on. And this film feels like it's like 3 plots chucked together randomly. There's a wax museum stuff, there's hypnotist stuff, there's a stuff with a business partner, there's a subplot with Evan Anders as his girlfriend / helper on the act, who's also trying to figure out what's going on. It's a hodgepodge of various things, but it's very enjoyable. It's total trash. It's the trashiest one in the bunch, but it's really enjoyable. I had a lot of fun watching this one. Far more than it deserved, because it really is the Wax Museum, the Mystery Wax Museum all over again, in lots of ways. You've got the person who runs the Wax Museum being sinister and doing his various things. He's a lot of fun. Apparently him and Laney hated each other. And you tell the performances, the characters hate each other. They don't have to act. But it's just ridiculous, campy fun. I had a blast. It's another one I'd probably watch quite easily, but for different reasons than the good ones. I'll go on to the Strange Confessions now, which is the strongest one. It's at least like the Inner Sanctum Mysteries, where there is a mystery. It's like, it starts off with a top lawyer having woken up by Lon Chaney Jnr., who they both went to university together and doing different subjects. Lon Chaney Jr. was a chemist and this guy was a lawyer, but they knew each other from that time. And Lon Chaney starts to tell him his story. And it's basically a story of how he gets corrupted and destroyed by his boss, played by J. Carrol Naish, who's this guy who's an industrialist. And he needs Lon Chaney Jr.'s chemistry to make these products that will sell well for him. But he never treats him right. And it's always the same thing. Lon Chaney Jr. just wants more time. He's not a greedy person. He wants more time. He would like more money for his family, but he especially wants more time to make sure everything's right. And then you have J. Carrol Naish as his boss, who always wants to get a shortcut, always tries to undercut his Lon Chaney Jr. And he's after his wife. His wife's played by Brenda Joyce in this one. So J. Carrol Naish covets Chaney Jr.'s wife, and it's a whole bunch of stories about this different vaccines, but how Chaney Jr. leaves his employment at one point. We'll just watch a chemist for a bit. He's brought back in with assurance he will never do these mistakes made before, and Chaney Jr. believes him and keeps walking this flu thing. He almost gets it right, but he says he needs a bit more time. He just needs to go to South America for this one thing that will help and make this thing foolproof, make the cure for influenza, the vaccine really work. Of course, while he's away, while he's sent away to do that, the older version of it is put in the market, which it doesn't work, and it causes many deaths, including the deaths of Chaney Jr.'s son, which of course leads to revenge. But it's all about the character stuff. This one is like it's a revenge tale, but that's the last 10 minutes. The first 50 minutes is Lon Chaney Jr., his wife, played by Brenda Joyce, and the boy slowly growing up and his family, and the compromises Lon Chaney Jr. makes to actually help his family, and how he has to deal with this other guy he doesn't quite trust. And it's a character piece, and that's why you're interested in it. It's about this thing. It's just like, it's the best part for Lon Chaney Jr. in these films, because it's a part he's naturally good at, playing a guy who's stubborn, to be his own worst enemy at times, but he plays him as an intelligent guy who makes mistakes. And that's what Lon Chaney Jr. was best at, was playing a guy. If he didn't have him say certain words, he could show a guy who was intelligent but not a genius, but had to work to get where he was going. And that's really how he works well in this film. Brenda Joyce, who played Jade in a lot of Tarzan films later, is good as his wife. J. Carrol Naish is terrific as the villain, because you want to see him get his... There's a brutality at the end of what happens. So it is the most brutal film in the series, but it's also the most human, and it's the best one, really. Though I really like Weird Women as well. The final one It's Pillow of Death, which is another one of the trashy ones. You could tell they'd kind of given up at this point. It was like, this series is going. We'll just do this one we've put together. Again, like the one with Wax Team, it feels like there's a bunch of stuff, a bunch of scenes they had thrown into one mix. But again, it's a lot of fun because it's like you've got this old family who are all into like spiritualism and they're all superstitious, but they've got a brother who also lives with them who hates all this stuff. You've got a murder, and you've got like various suspects, and you have a love story with Lon Chaney Jnr. and Brenda Joyce. She's a part of the family. He's an outside lawyer. She's his alibi. He didn't do the murder type of thing. And there's lots of stuff going on. There's a creepy guy stalking Brenda Joyce. There's lots of weird stuff. It's all tacky as hell. And then for the first time, Lon Chaney Jr. is the villain, ultimately. And it's fun because it comes off well, because the character he plays is very suspicious. Even though, of course, Lon Chaney Jr. you expect him not to be the villain, turns out he is the villain. But it's a very enjoyable series of films, actually. I mean, this film, even though it's tacky as hell, it's still enjoyable. For the full hour, you have weird character actors doing weird character actor stuff. You have old dark house cliches thrown in. And you have an investigation. And it's trashy as hell, but it's very enjoyable. So, the Inner Sanctum Mysteries, I would recommend. You can get them for like £25, or sale you probably get for cheaper. And for 6 films, 2 of which are terrific, 2 of which are trashy but wonderful, and then there are 2 that are 2 of the other ones that are enjoyable even though they're a bit long. That's still a really good package. And it is an underrated set, really, because there are 2 real strong episodes in it, and it's funny because this is obviously a setup which would become television, like television anthologies. These were just done as movies, but this is what was going to become like the Alfred Hitchcock show or Twilight Zone, this thing of mysteries that were, or science fiction that were limited time but different characters and different stories. This was kind of one of the early versions of that. But in TV shows, they never had one person playing a character each episode. It was always been different actors in every episode rather than having a lead actor for each story. So that was a big difference, but it was a kind of way it was going towards TV. But it's also going towards film noir, because a lot of these stories are very film noirish, but they don't fully go into the desperation and darkness that we're going to get with someone like Robert Mitchum involved. I mean, Lon Chaney Jr. was kind of the actor who was leading the way towards film noir with his sort of style of acting. But he would never do the jump himself. He was a horror star. He wasn't a film noir guy. But a lot of what he was doing was leading the way towards film noir. But he was a guy who never made that jump himself. And then Inner Sanctum Mysteries was another step towards that, you know. And it's a really enjoyable series of films. So go watch them. They're fun. Hey, that's me for now. Bye.